Here we're training our footwork, specifically the diagonal step. Each participant here has a small stick laying in front of them from the neutral position, and the drill is to always use the diagonal step to step off the line that the stick gives us so that we end up on one side of the stick with both feet. The purpose here is to learn to leave the line of attack. We'll demonstrate this here. My partner gives me a straight line attack and I step off to the side so that I can then step around him and get away. We'll show it again in one fluid motion. The attack comes in and immediately, without trying to deal with the attack, I evade it and get away. Let my partner try now. Make sure he gets around me and then can get away quickly. So the other option is to step backwards at an angle. This is the diagonal step backwards. And this is actually the safer option. And here again, I let my partner try it. He does a good job. He is far enough away that I couldn't reach him with the other hand. The only thing that I still want him to face, turn his hips towards me so that he has his weapons at his disposal. And this contrasts with the natural reaction, how a person would normally react to force coming in, is to turn away from the direction of the force, put the hands in between the head and the incoming force. But it's better to face so that I can then deal with the next attack. Here again, we show this during the seminar. Showing it with the same partner because he's done it before. Breaking down the details to first really, without actually using the hands, just step off the line. And then when you have that moment, you get around. And important here is that you use the outside leg to get off the line, and then you follow through with the other leg. Having done the footwork drills, which are most essential because we want to get away if you can and not fight, we start training our body weapons. Here we are drilling the knee strike, first from a stationary position, next with a little bit of a step, so bringing the body weight forward. For each of these drills, there are certain details that need to be in place for the technique to work well. So we always go over the details. And then the next step is to practice these weapons against pads, which is where we learn to generate the actual power for the technique. And here again, I explain the details that in this drill, you pull sort of your elbows to your hips, which then adds considerable power to the strike. And most of the time, training partner will be performing the actual technique. Here he does a good job, pulling me and then performing the strike. To give a little bit of a feeling of what this looks and feels like when you've done it many times, I also show with the training partner, also always going very gently. Now during the seminar, after the participants have trained the knee strike first by themselves and then with a partner in a little bit of a scenario drill and then later on with the pad. Here now every participant gets the opportunity to really give their maximum force, because through many years of training I can hold against that more easily than another participant can. And in this drill we introduce another aspect of self-defense training. This is a bit of stress training, where each participant has to do their motion quickly and then get back into the line and the next person comes forward. And so by making the participants do it quickly, it adds an element of stress, but in a light way that is not too stressful either. And already the knee strikes are getting pretty good from all of the participants. course, always train on both sides. As on the street, you cannot choose that you always have one side in the front. Both have to work. Of course, we also discuss where you would actually target with the weapons. So for the knee strike, one primary target is the groin. And the idea is normally that if you hit somebody in the groin with a full-blown knee strike, they're going to go down. However, there are other options as well. For example, if somebody steps into your space, you can step offline and use the knee strike to target their upper thigh or hip. And if you go full force with that, it's quite likely that you may be able to knock out the person, or they won't be able to walk. So here in the seminar, we then put multiple motions together. Now the idea is that the participant come in, perform a little check to the shoulders, do a knee strike, and then push back the opponent or push themselves off the opponent to not stay in that range. At this point, participants are free to choose either side. And again, they all are doing a pretty good job. Whenever one of them forgets part of the drill, I just ask them to do it again. And here already is principal power. Now we come to the next important concept, which is to strike with penetration. And here the idea is really that you don't strike against the surface of the target, but you strike through the target. You actually target something on the other side of the pad here, and the pad is sort of just in the way. And this produces a much more powerful strike, which has then the potential to really rattle the opponent, and if it's the head that you're hitting, to cause a knockout. We show the same thing with the knee. Never target just the surface. We want to shoot through onto the other side. During the seminar, we discussed the same idea here, using an elbow strike, which is the next important body weapon. And again, here the idea is to strike through the target and not hit on the surface, which is a likely thing that an untrained person will do. They might hit the opponent, but then would just barely scratch the surface. So here we have the participants drilling by themselves. This is preferred way for them to do it. I point out some details again, such as not pulling back the arm before striking. And they are doing a good job, also developing quite a bit of power, but not exactly in the way that I would recommend. A little bit too much turning. Here I show again, it's quite easy to just use the rotation and a straight line attack instead of a round attack to produce considerable amount of power. As with the knee strike, also with the elbow strike, the participant have the opportunity here to give their best shot. And again, I point out that for self-defense, we cannot pull back the hands. They are in front of us, protecting us at all times. And so from there, the techniques have to start. Now, while the participants are already doing a good job here with the overall technique, I still tend to lean a little bit into this elbow strike. You can see the heel lifting up, so completely normal behavior. But actually at this range that we want to use the elbow strike, which is quite close, it's not preferred. And we'll see in a second why. Here I have the feeling that the participant was leaning too much, and when I pull away the pad, she completely lost her balance. And this is exactly the point of why I show the elbow strike in this way, so that it just shoots forward without leaning or over-rotating. And so if it goes wrong for some reason, then at least I don't compromise my balance. Don't lean into a strike. Stay nice and upright and just rotate. Gives me a better position. And we can see this again here. I show the details to the participant to kind of sink into a stance and rotate and produce the energy this way, which leaves you nice and upright and without danger of losing your footing. Now, of course, on the street, falling to the floor or losing the footing is absolutely not desirable, has to be avoided at all costs. Having previously gone flying from leaning too much into the elbow strike, the same participant now stays much more balanced. After these drills, I again point out that the power generation comes from the hip for these body weapons, either from rotation of the hip or shooting forwards of the hip, but it's never just the extremities that generate the power.